Namaskar. So today we will study Ananda Sutram, continue, and we will go into Sutra number 2. We will first revise a little bit for Sutra number 1. And I think that's probably going to be enough for today. So let me do some... How is everyone doing? Everyone looks good? Yeah? And all right, so in Sutra 2, I'm just gonna share my screen actually today so that you can just see. I can switch between the different applications. So let's start here with so now this sutra, the explanation by Sri Sriyandamurti is really difficult to understand, and so we'll slowly go through it and go back and forth. But let's first revise the first sutra. So the first sutra is Shiva Shaktyatmakam Brahma. Shiva Shaktyatmakam Brahma. Brahma is the composite of Shiva and Shakti. So Shiva is the consciousness and Shakti is the operative principle. And he uses here the words inalienable concomitants. It means they are inseparable. You cannot separate the two. And so both are, he also talks about causation. So everything has a cause and everything has an effect. But Shiva and Shakti, they are without the cause. They are the origin of everything. And so they are non-causal in the sense that they are what everything originates from. And Shiva or Purusha is consciousness. And so the word Atma is used when we have consciousness of the individual. We normally call it soul in English. And so Atma is witnessing our actions. And then if we add a param in front of Atma, Paramatma, then that is the witnessship of the entire universe. And so the word Brahma is everything. It's the consciousness and creative force. The whole universe is within Brahma, so we are within Brahma, all the individuals, as well as the witnessship. Brahma is everything. Brahma is the entire system. And this chapter is about something called Brahma Chakra, the creation of the universe and how it originates from consciousness. And here in this chapter is talked a little bit about substantiation. And so substantiation is when something has its existence due to something else. And so the consciousness is the origin of everything. And so it's the consciousness that substantiates everything as well. It's the ultimate witnessship. So like we are witnessing the world around us through our organs and motor and sensory organs or indriyas. So that's external to us, we are subject. Same way Atman is subject to us and we are the object. And so Atman is witnessing everything, consciousness is witnessing everything. But the consciousness is more than that. The consciousness is also the material that everything is created out of. So the whole universe is created out of consciousness, and it is created by the consciousness metamorphosing into matter gradually. And so the Brahma Chakra, it describes how the consciousness metamorphoses into matter. And I showed you a slide here. So this slide here shows how originally you have just consciousness, and then the consciousness metamorphoses into Mahad Ahang Chitta, and then into the physical world, and then again into animate world, and then we have the opportunity to merge again. So this is called Brahmachakra. And we are microcosm in the sense that this whole universe is reflected in our body, in our mind. And so in the explanation of the Sutra 1, Sri Shantimurti uses the word Atman to explain about what is Purusha, or consciousness. A little bit similar, like you would take a human being and you explain, okay, human being has an Atman, which is the witnessship of the human being. Similarly, the universe also has a witnessship of everything in the universe. So we went through quite a few questions, answers last times, and they were all good questions. So do you have any questions before I go into Sutra number 2? Nope, everything clear. Okay, so then let's go into Sutra 2, and I want to first read the text so that we can then again come back to it. So this is normally the way we do the study group, is that I want you to become equipped with or familiar with reading the original texts, so that you can take up any book and you can read, and you can, you have a system of how to ponder through it, how to, break up the meaning and try to understand it. Because most of the books in Anamarga, or some of them, are, they need a little bit of a pondering, or a little bit of a diving into the meaning. The meaning is not always obvious. Okay, so let's just take turns. So maybe Lokanath, you can read the first paragraph, the purport. Or let me say the sutra. So the sutra is Shakti Sha Shivasha Shakti. Shakti Sha Shivasha Shakti. Shakti, the operative principle, is the Shakti or force of Shiva. And okay, I can read you can just pause when you come to the Sanskrit, and I can read the Sanskrit.
Every object has a material cause and an efficient cause. Over and above these, there is also a conjunctive agency linking the... Did you mean pause here?
Karana. Upadana Karana.
Upadana Karana, material cause, with the
Nimitta Karana.
Nimitta Karana, efficient or instrumental cause. The determination of the firmness or laxity of the relation of the material cause with the efficient cause depends on the degree of conjunctive functions. In the process of creation, Purusha is the material factor, and what's the proper pronunciation?
Prakriti.
Prakriti is the linking force consummating the relation between the material and the efficient causes. As the efficient cause, Purusha is the primary factor, and Prakriti is the secondary one.
Thank you. So we'll go into more details of it. I have some quotes from the Conscious Universe, the book by Devashish. But he explains that in the history of philosophy in India, this was very much debated. So some of the previous philosophers, they would, in their philosophy, they would say that no, Shakti is the primary, Shakti is the main, and consciousness is just passive. It's like a dead body. It doesn't do anything. But here, Sri Shantimurti says no, the consciousness is the primary. It's the material cause. And I think we just jump right away into the explanation of this in the conscious universe, because this otherwise this just doesn't make any sense. So I put it here into the slide. Okay, so yeah, so here it is. So are you able to see this? Or it's too small? I can make it bigger. Just delete these titles. So okay, so maybe in Indrayani, you can read this one. Try to make it a little bit bigger.
Sure. In philosophical parlance, every object in this universe, be it material or psychic, has a material cause and an instrumental cause, as well as a conjunctive agency that links the two. The material cause is the substance from which the object is formed. The instrumental or efficient cause is the agent that has made the object or allowed for it to be made. And the conjunctive agency is the power by which the instrumental cause shapes that substance into its present form. This is commonly explained through the analogy of a potter fashioning a pot from a lump of clay. The clay is the material cause, being the substance from which the pot is formed. The potter is the instrumental cause, being the maker of the pot, and the potter's artisanal skill and effort is as channeled through the potter's wheel.
Thank you. So in this sense, you have Purusha, and so the Purusha is the consciousness, and then the Prakriti is the operative force, and then so Purusha is the material, and Prakriti is the instrumental, is the efficient cause. Now the gunas, the three gunas here, attributes or binding principles, so they are the how to say. Oh, I see. We didn't go into this sentence yet. So we have the upadana karana, material cause, nimitti karana, or efficient or instrumental cause, and then you have the conjunctive functions. So let me just highlight this. So we have conjunctive functions. We have upadana karana, or material cause, and we have the nimitti karana, or instrumental cause. And then he says the firmness or laxity of the relation of the material cause of the efficient cause depends on the degree of conjunction functions. So this sounds very abstract, and it's abstract, it's very philosophical, but it's basically saying that Purusha is the material, like the clay, so the Purusha is the material, and Prakriti is the is like the potter, and then the gunas, or the creative forces, they are those conjunctive functions. And so the firmness and laxity, it means that how strongly are the gunas expressing, well, then determine of how how it all plays out. And just gonna stop sharing. I somehow messed up this. I don't see it myself, actually. Okay, so now let's read the next sentence.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
And I don't know, maybe it's too early to think about this, but is there any implication that we want it firm or lax, or is it just there are different ways and there is no preferential versus do we want it stronger, more strongly impressed, the gunas more strongly expressed? Do we want them less strongly expressed? Is there anything like that there, or am I kind of going off?
Yeah, well, in our lives, in our lives, we definitely want the sattvic force stronger and the tamasic force weaker, in the sense that we want our mind, especially, to be dominated by the sattvic force and not by the tamasic force, because the tamasic force is bringing us back to materialism or animal life, and the sattvic force is bringing us towards consciousness. But in the creation of the universe, they are all necessary. They are all needed. And when the consciousness is metamorphosing from pure consciousness into material world, it's mainly the tamasic force which is at work. It's the tamasic force that crucifies the consciousness to become this created universe. And so, in a way, sanchara is a degeneration, in the sense that you have pure consciousness metamorphosing into cruder and cruder and cruder substance until it becomes physical matter or solid matter. And then it starts to shrivel up the authority that so the consciousness allows the creative force to act upon itself. And so the other sutras, they explain how that happens. So
Thank
like
you.
in the cosmos, in the universe, the consciousness allows the tamasic force to make it crude, because otherwise it would not have any manifestation. And in our lives, we need the sattvic force, but in a way, we also need the other forces, because the other forces are dominating our lives. I mean, they also have their functions in our life. We need to sleep. Like sleep is dominated by tamaguna, and we need to, we need to move. We need to do something in the world. That's a rajaguna. And even, so all the forces are necessary. But we want our mind to be dominated by the sattvic force.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's go through this next sentence. So maybe Indrayani, you can read the second sentence. Purusha is the all-pervading. Oh no, you read it. Sorry. Sorry. Didi is next. Didi, you can read the second.
Purusa is the all-pervading entity, and so no one else except him can be the material cause. Prakriti, not being all-pervading, is sheltered in Purusa. In the body of Purusa, Prakriti can only work as much as she is given opportunity to by Purusa. And so, in the science of creation, Purusa alone, as the doer entity, is the chief efficient or instrumental cause. And since Prakriti has been posing as the doer with the authority given to her by Purusa, she is the subordinate efficient cause. The distortion or expression which are taking place in the material cause through the efficient cause, and which we call worldly manifestation, are affected by the three gunas, means attribute or binding principle, that is sattva, raja, and tama of the prakriti. This account of prakriti being the linking force between the efficient cause and the material cause. So the firmness or feebleness of the object body fully depend upon the degree of influence of prakriti.
Thank you, Didi. So this is exactly what I was saying here, firmness or laxicity of the relation. So how much Prakriti is influencing will determine how much firm or feeble is the object body. It means, in other words, there's various degrees of subtlety in the universe, and when Prakriti is more dense or more stronger or more strongly influencing the Purusha, especially with the tamasic force, then it's firmer. The bondage is stronger, and it's less felt in other. Now, let's be very clear about what are these three gunas. So I think that's covered quite well here in the commentary on Ananda Sutram. So she goes, Didhyana Mitra, she explains here what are the different gunas. So let's just go through that before we go any further. So Swasti, you can read this.
Sattva guna, sentient force. Sattva guna gives the sense of existence, the feeling of I am. Under the bondage of sattva guna, Mahatattva, the subjectivated I feeling, is created from the cosmic consciousness. Sattva guna imparts happiness and a sense of relief. It awakens the desire to seek liberation from bondages. Its vibrational color is white.
Thank you. So in the further sutras, Sri Shandimurti will explain more about what is Mahatattva and how that is created. And but essentially it's the feeling of I exist. Now here, Didhyana Mitra writes, Sattva guna imparts happiness and a sense of relief. It awakens the desire to seek liberation from bondage. Its vibrational color is white. This is more when we are talking about individuals. So Sattva guna imparts happiness. The gunas, they are kind of neutral in a way. But when we feel them in our life, the Sattva guna is bringing us towards consciousness, and so that's why we feel happiness or bliss when we are influenced by Sattva guna. And the color is white, like the mental color of a person who is influenced mostly by Sattva guna. The mental color will be white. And Sri Shandamurti, in the beginning of Andamarga, he did some experiments on this. So there was one senior sadhaka, not remember, the name is not coming to my mind exactly. Do you remember, Didi?
What is that?
No, there was one of the first disciples of Sri Shandamurti. And,
the one that he got initiated?
Yeah, it was initiated by Sri
Alexander?
Shandamurti. No. There was one brother in India. I'm forgetting his name. I'll check it out later. But anyway, Baba would use him often for demonstration, this brother. And so one of the demonstrations he did was he would ask him to meditate, and then he would ask him to mentally, or I'm not sure if he had to open his eyes or keep his eyes closed, but he asked him to mentally see the aura of different people or see the energy field around people. And so then he would ask a certain person and he said, oh, this person is completely white, and then another person, oh, there's some white, but there is some disturbance here. And so you would see, if there was some disturbance or some other colors or black or something coming in. And then Sri Shandamurti would, because he he had kind of omniscient knowledge, so he would then tell, he is very sincere, but there is something happening in his life, and he would explain, why the various colors were coming in the aura. So the white color is the color of the sattva guna, and so if someone's mind is predominantly spiritual, then the white will be strong in their mind. Okay, then Rajaguna, so muta force. So I think Lokatita, I say I'm not Lokatita. Nilima, are you there? Maybe she's not able to speak. Maybe Lokanath, you can speak.
Rajaguna, mutative force. Rajaguna is characterized by action. It wants to keep the I busy with action and then enjoy the results of the action. It is the sense of doership. It activates the I. Under its bondage, the Aham Tattva is created from the Maha Tattva. Its vibrational color is red.
Thank you. So Rajaguna gives rise to the ego or the doership. So it's the mutative force. And then Tamaguna is the static force. And Tamaguna gives sense of objectivity in the cosmic mind, to create cosmic chitta, the objective portion of the mind. And so for the cosmic mind, the universe is a mental projection, and for us it's physical. And so that's why Sri Sandamurti, he says later on in Ananda Sutram, he says that this world is a relative truth. It's not absolute truth, it's a relative truth. And that accounts for that for the cosmic mind, it's mental, and for us, it's physical. And so that's why the different gurus, they have been able to bend the natural laws, like Jesus walking on the water, or Sri Sandamurti also did various experiments. And so the physical world is essentially controlled by the cosmic mind. So it's a mental projection. For us, it's very physical, but it's actually mental for the Supreme. And okay. So then we are talking about so Didi also talks about the potter and the clay. Now here, this is important, Nirguna and Saguna Brahma. I think, did I mention about this last time? Nirguna and Saguna. I think I didn't go into it too much. So DDC talks about it here in this page. Let's read this one, because this one also needs to be clear. So maybe Swasti, you can read this one. This is pronounced as Anuchunya.
Brahma exists in two states. The first is a completely transcendent state, not qualified or affected in any way by the operative principle, and her three gunas or binding energy forces. Here Brahma is called Gunatita, or beyond the gunas, and Shakti is unexpressed Anuchunya. Thus, Nirguna Brahma is not associated in any way with the creation except the Taraka Brahma. The second state is Saguna Brahma, a state qualified or operated on by the three gunas. In Saguna Brahma, Shakti does influence Shiva. She is often portrayed symbolically as dancing on the body of Shiva, for in the infinite body or pure consciousness she plays, transforming that pure consciousness into cruder vibration so that creation may come into existence. Shiva is merely lying flat, not acting, merely witnessing her dance.
Okay, thank you. So nirguna. So nir means no, and guna is the gunas. So where the gunas are not expressed is nirguna, and where the gunas are expressed is saguna. And Sri Andamurti in the Andamarga elementary philosophy, he describes it that like you have like an ocean, and then in part of the ocean you have the iceberg, and so where the iceberg is, you have the creative, the universe, the Saguna Brahma, and then you have the unmanifested consciousness. So it means that although the universe is so vast, the universe is just like an iceberg in the ocean. You know, it is only part of that infinite unmanifested consciousness. And because the way infinite works is that you can have infinite manifested consciousness within the infinite unmanifested consciousness. It's not how to say. That's the way infinite works. You know, you can have infinites within the infinite, so to speak. Okay, so then I want to also a little bit, I had a nice quote from here. This is from the other book. So this is kind of explaining more about what is Prakriti, and I think that's also good to touch on that. So shall we read this one also a little bit? So what is the primary function of Shakti? Indrayani, you want, or Nilima, you want to read this one?
What is the primary function of Shakti? It is to transform the hitherto quiescent Shiva. Any transformation of consciousness is, in effect, an act of bondage, the imposition of form on the formless. Consciousness in its pure state being unbound, the one independent, unchanging, eternal entity. Thus the role of Shakti is to bind consciousness, doing so to give birth to the creation. Hence, Shakti is traditionally addressed as Sha or She in Indian spiritual discourse, symbolic of its creative function. Another word for Shakti is Prakriti, from the root kr or kr, to do, and prefix
Kri.
pra, forth or onward. Prakriti is that whose nature is to cause or bring about an action. Its closest English equivalent would be procreator or procreatrix. In the English prefix, pro similar in form and function to the Sanskrit prefix pra. Thus, Prakriti, the primal energy of creation, creates the material of consciousness and fashions it into the manifest universe. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Namaskar.
Thank you, Nina. So I think this this quote is important. So this is from Devashish. So here he is explaining that what is consciousness is the energy which transforms the consciousness, and so the nirguna is where the consciousness is in pure state, and but then in the saguna, the shakti or the creative force, she starts to bind the consciousness, and by doing so, she gives birth to the creation. And so, as she is giving birth to the creation, she is traditionally addressed as in the feminine, as she, and she is the one. She is like the mother of everything. Everything comes from Shakti, and so she creates the universe out of consciousness, but she does so, and so this sutra explains the relationship that the creation is still controlled by the consciousness. It's the consciousness which allows the creative force to operate. So it's a little bit like, if we would take our mind body, then our body is controlled by the mind. But here it's even more fundamental, where the consciousness allows creation to take place. Okay. Then this is covered already. This is also covered already. Okay. So, any questions so far? Is it very clear?
I don't know if this is really a question that can be answered without a ridiculous amount of philosophical exploration. But I mean, right, I feel like I'm getting some, right, from this of thinking of how does consciousness materialize into this physical world?
Yeah.
We're talking about the consciousness is allowing the Prakriti to do the materializing, but I guess I'm still trying to, maybe I don't know whether it's even important here, is to understand, so is the consciousness separate from the Prakriti, and what would it mean that they're separate from each other?
No, well, that's covered in the first sutra. The first sutra is Shakti, Shiva Shakti Atmakam Brahma. That Brahma is composite of Shiva and Shakti. And so they are, and that was the inalienable commitance. You remember those two words?
Yeah,
so like a paper that cannot be separated, you cannot separate the one side from the other side without jeopardizing the paper.
Okay, sorry, that's coming back to me. So I guess I'm still not fully following. So what is the significance of the idea that the consciousness is allowing Prakriti to do it? That's the part I guess I still can't really wrap my head around.
Yeah, that's
the idea of it's allowing.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So because that's actually a very fundamental question. If you just think of the question of like whom to worship, this is the eternal question that was facing the primordial people, whom to worship. And so in the beginning they would worship the mountains, they would worship the sun, they would worship the phallus, being the procreation, or the capacity to give birth. And so they would worship different things. But then at a certain point came this idea of God. And so God being like the God of gods, or the source of everything, the consummation of everything. And so that idea came with Shiva. And so after Shiva, this idea of one God came. And then, you know, the three Semitic religions, they are all based on one God idea. And but then in the Indian philosophy, they understood that there is a Purusha and there is a Prakriti. But then came the question, who is stronger, consciousness or the creative force? Is the consciousness just a passive entity that actually has no role, or is the consciousness all pervading? Is the consciousness everything? What is this universe anyway? Is the universe just an illusion? You know, should we just go to the Himalayas and meditate there and forget about this world, or should we engage in the world? You know, like all of these things, they are fundamental questions. And so if you say, okay, Prakriti is the more powerful, then you will want to worship what is more powerful. So if Prakriti is the powerful one, then we should make Prakriti happy. We should, you know, we should worship her. And but then, you know, and then comes also the question of like, what do we want? Do we want power, or we want consciousness? So if we want power, maybe we just ask Prakriti, oh Prakriti, I want power. Give me power. I want to control. I want to do this, I want to do that. Or do we say, no, I want a pure consciousness? And so now if you want pure consciousness, then, you know, you will start to advance towards the consciousness. But if you want power, you actually start advancing towards material control and material things, which is crudifying the mind. And so it's important to understand that the consciousness is the summum bonum of everything. So it's a little bit like, do I worship my body, or do I worship my mind, or do I worship something subtler than my mind? If I worship my body, I'll just eat, sleep, and be happy, you know. I will live a materialistic life, and I will derive my happiness from that. And if I want my mind, if I worship my mind, I say, oh, my mind is the most important thing, and I'll just engage in endless intellectual discourse and, you know, remove myself from this world. But here in this philosophy, you say, no, you have to go even subtler than the mind. You have to go to the pure consciousness, which is beyond the mind. And so then you're not worshiping your body, you're not worshiping your mind, you are trying to go beyond all of that to pure consciousness, which is also the source of happiness. So we are still in the very fundamental concepts, like in the Sutra 2.1, in the second chapter, Sri Shantamurti starts to deal with, why are we doing these things? Why are we meditating? And then he explains that Brahma Anantam Anandam, you know, Brahma is infinite bliss or happiness, and we seek that bliss. So, and when we achieve that bliss, we don't need anything else. And so in chapter 2, chapter 1 is just explaining the creation of the universe. And then chapter 2 is explaining, why are we doing spiritual practice? Because we want to attain bliss and happiness in our lives. And then chapter 3 is explaining different phenomena. And then chapter 4 is going deeper into the creation theory, into the pre-universe creation theory. You know, so it's So we are kind of just laying the foundation on this stage. Okay, Indrayani, your question?
Is there like a why to why the pure consciousness decided to become crude?
Oh yeah.
Like, is there a why to it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. There's a sutra
Or is it
about
just
that.
like a natural function, like just that's just how the universe is, like
Yeah.
photosynthesis or something, like just a natural thing? Or is there a why?
Yeah. Well, there is a sutra about that actually, which is I forgot that sutra. Let me just do a screen share. I'll bring it up. Yeah, there is a sutra about that. I think it's in chapter 2. Chapter 3. Yeah, chapter 3. I'm sorry, I should know this, but somehow you kind of caught me off guard. I have to a little bit search for it. But yeah, there is a sutra explaining that the cause of the universe is beyond the periphery of the mind to understand. Yeah, here it is, 211. Manasatide anavastayam jagat bijam. So the seed of the universe lies beyond the mind in a state the mind cannot comprehend. So in other words, there is a reason why the universe was created, but it's beyond the mind to comprehend that. So he explains it in a kind of a, how to say, yes, you can know the answer, but you have to become one with the supreme consciousness. And once you become one with the consciousness, there will be no question anymore, because you have become one with him.
Maybe
Thanks,
I
Dada.
can try to say something, but I don't know if this is going to answer the question. Is the pure consciousness, or we call the supreme consciousness, because in the very beginning is only supreme consciousness, and that supreme consciousness is just only alone, and no one like to be alone. We need somebody. We need, if you just remain yourself alone and nothing around you, you're going to become crazy. So the supreme consciousness, he was alone, and then he started to create his lila, the creation, so then he can play with. He has somebody with him. He has how to say, um, some creation. So to be able to create that, she need to be crudified, and this prakriti is taking the roles, to crudify so then there is from the nirguna brahma into the saguna brahma, and eventually everything is still supreme consciousness. Remember that Baba was saying that the paper, Siva and Shakti, is supreme consciousness. And then when I form this one like this, and then when I say, what is this? You say it's triangle, right? But actually, what is this triangle? Is also a paper. Is this Siva and Shakti? So it's the same thing, but it's only the shape is different because it's crudified. And then, if I shape it like this, what is this? Maybe it looks like a ball, become more crude because more shape. But actually, what is this actually? It's a paper. And what is that? It's the Siva and Shakti. And what is that? It is a Brahma. It is the supreme consciousness. So the crudification is happening just to create more creation or beings or whatever, so before creating the human being, so then there is the process of the consciousness to create the human being. So there is the process from the subtle, the supreme consciousness, then is, it become more crudified and it's become ethereal, and then more crudified is become aerial, and more crude is become liquid, and then luminous, and then solid. And after that, when it is very solid and become, the mind is start to forms. When mind start to forms, then start to creating the different creatures. I don't know if that answer the question.
Yeah, that was nice. Yeah, so that's kind of the devotee's answer to the question. The devotee will say, yes, okay, there's no answer to this question, but I think that the Lord was alone. Was alone. So it's like the devotees. But that answer is also important for prapativad, or for the surrender to the Supreme. When you see that everything is the expression of the Supreme, and it's all a lila or a divine game.
Dada, does Baba talks about or explain further in the sutra about what is the purpose of this supreme consciousness creating human beings?
Or why did
Having
he create
why did
us?
he create us with the five senses? I mean, just to see if he talks about it further in the future in this book.
You think it was maybe a mistake? uh, no, he doesn't really talk about that in that sense. He says that he explains how things evolved, and that we have the capacity to meditate, and so that's the purpose of our lives, is to complete the cycle, go back to the source. He paints the picture of a cycle, and then explains to us, okay, you should go. There's only one way for you. You should become one with the consciousness. You should not just go back to animal life. You have to complete the cycle. So that's why he is explaining all these things. He wants us to become become one with the consciousness again. And he wants us to feel empowered to do that we can actually do that. We understand the philosophy, and we have the practices to be able to complete that cycle. So he gives the goal, and he also gives the means to achieve that goal through the meditation. Okay, so I think I will stop the recording now. Namaskar to those.